Hey YouTube, welcome back. This is Gene. This is my video on my Woods 22XE cam installed on my 2021 Fat Bob. So thanks for watching. I know there's not a lot of videos out there on it, little sound clips here and there, but not, most people don't expound. So I'll do a fire up and show you after I get done running my yap. I got a little note here on some cardboard, first rate stuff here, so I don't forget. So first thing is the tuning. It will start and run on the Harley tune. I was able to load it on a trailer once I put the kit in. She got from Fuel Moto. And without backfiring, without, it actually was okay to move. And I did that based on their advice. I called them and asked them, and they said, absolutely, you can move it, run it, just don't try to drive it very far. So that's what I did, and it worked out fine. So Techno Research is the only game in town for a 21 Fat Bob, and for most Harleys right now, until everybody else catches up. So that's what I did. I installed it, took it down, loaded it on my trailer, took it down to Fort Myers, to West Coast Cycles, and Tony down there tuned it for me. I took it first to a tuner not far from me in Florida that turned out not to be a tuner. He turned out to be a person that had a license with Techno Research and a laptop, and that was it. He didn't know how to do anything else. So what he did is he loaded a map from Techno Research with a cam that's really close to the Woods 22XE, and it's the Redshift 472. They're like a thousandths off in lift and duration, as well as lobe separation. So they're really close on paper. So anyway, he loaded it with that. It wouldn't idle below 2,000 RPM. It just was terrible, backfiring. And at 2,000, it would run it halfway decent. But anyway, I paid him, but it was not acceptable. He didn't know what to do, so I ended up taking it down to West Coast Cycles in Fort Myers, Florida, to Tony, and he had the dyno, and he knew how to tune, so he did it for me. So before I get to the numbers, and I'll tell you this real quick, there was two factors. This was a couple of weeks ago. So this was August, and it was 98 degrees air temperature, and his West Coast Cycles is an old metal shop, and with I don't know if there's any insulation, there's little to none, and the dyno room is not a dyno room. It's a bay door, or garage bay area with the door up, and a dyno sitting on the floor inside 10, 15 feet inside. It works, it's just not fancy with the controlled environment and ventilation and all that. It just is what it is. So the problem is it was 98 degrees outside, about 80% plus relative humidity. It was very close to the water, which is bad for power. And when you walked from the outside through the bay door into the shop, it felt like you were opening an oven door. It was an easily 5 to 6 temperature increase. It just slapped you in the face. So it was easily 103, 104 degrees inside the shop. And so that's terrible for power, making power. It's worst case scenario. Plus he did it in fourth gear. And he wanted to keep the speed down on the dyno, which I understand that. But most of the horsepower numbers for the Woods 22XE that I could find across the web are either fifth or sixth gear, and they're in the 120s horsepower and same torque. Some of them are 130 torque and a little plus. So anyway, I had these two factors working against me. The temperature, the ambient temperature, plus 11 runs in this 103, 104 degree shop. Bike was totally heat soaked. So that cost me in my drag racing experience, 5 to 10 horsepower, but we'll say 5 horsepower just for the heck of it. We'll say 5. And then the fourth gear run cost me about the same, about 5 in horsepower and torque. So I made, with all these factors, 11 runs later, I made 116 horsepower and 117.97 foot-pounds of torque. If you add in the 10 horsepower that I'm down for the previous examples, so we'd look at 126 and 127 easily. So, and that's with a, I'll show you the graph in a few minutes. That's with a S&S Super Street 2-into-1 with, and it's a cat. It's got a cat in it, and it's also got their baffle in it, so it is not loud. It is very mean and throaty, very, but it doesn't blow your ears out. It is not super loud, so sounds really good. So I can't complain about that, definitely. Now the other thing that does is increases the cylinder pressure. And if anybody's modding their bikes, and especially with the M8s, we know about the sumping and the oil levels up and down. Let's see what else. Oh, oil in the air breather, stuff like that. So I did vent my crankcase bolts down to a DK Customs catch can, and I'll show you that before I fire it. And I also did the trans vent. So I took my lid off. Got love bugs in Florida. Please come get them if you want them. I took the lid off, put a fitting in there, a bulkhead fitting, and there's tons of videos on it. I think it was Ron's Garage, I think his channel, and so yeah, I did it myself. It cost me probably 20 bucks in parts, and it wasn't bad at all. And it does run better. I put about 60 miles on it after I did that mod, and I know there's discussion on whether or not relieving that crankcase pressure, if it adds horsepower or whatever. I went for a ride not expecting anything, because this thing is now a beast. And I did not lose any torque on the bottom or anything over stock. It feels like it gained to me. On the bottom end, and then of course off the bottom and all the way up to the top, it's just an animal now. It's surprising how much power it makes. You have to hold on. It'll fly. But anyway, so to answer the vent question, I can definitely say that it is better. It runs smoother, and the throttle response is a little quicker. It's a little more crisp. About the same from when it's cold to hot. And before, there was a difference. When it was hot or warm, throttle response, it lagged a little bit. And I think it's because the pressure is so high when it gets hot inside the motor. So, but yeah, I would have to say yes. Did it gain a horsepower or two? Maybe. I mean, it's not much, but it definitely runs better. It does. You can tell a difference. Like you just did a fresh tune-up on it. It does make a difference, and it solves the oiling problem. So yeah, it's well worth the 20 bucks and a little bit of time to do that. By the way, I did about a 50-mile trip before I did the vent cover, and most of it, probably about 25 miles of it, was between about 70 and 90 and 95, and it was me mostly in top gear, just having a blast, passing cars 1, 2, 3 at a time, just roll on just a little bit of throttle, half inch maybe of throttle, and just hang on and just blast by. It's actually comical how much power it's got. It's fun. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, and I did some wide open throttle runs during that time, just a couple of gears. So I was definitely not trying to save gas. And I checked my mileage, and I got 40.3 miles to the gallon with this cam. So that's pretty good. So, and that's probably a 92, 93 degree day. So you can imagine better conditions and just cruising, there's 44, 45 miles of a gallon, no problem. So the other thing I did too was because they say about the M8s and increasing how much power the clutch can slip. So I ordered the AIM springs from Fuel Moto. They're 3 springs. I think they're $20. And the 3 springs come with 6 washers that you can put underneath the springs to add a little bit. I think they said every washer added 5 or 10% of tension. I used both the washers under each spring, so I got as much pressure as I could. Definitely increased pressure on the clutch lever, but it's stiffer. But I mean, it's not a problem. If your hands are real weak, then yeah, you might have a problem. But I can tell you that's a major improvement. You can tell it right from when you start. And I don't do hard starts, but still, it's a much better engagement, much more positive. There's zero slippage. I had them in on the dyno. There's no slippage. It was probably the best $20, or I don't know if they're 20 or 30 bucks. That's a no-brainer. So that way you keep your clutch from slipping and glazing. So anyway, so I'm going to bear with me. I'm going to show you the graph, and then I'll fire the bike up. So bear with me here for a second. Turn this camera around. All right. Okay, let me get above this graph. Okay, you can see the red is in the top left, 116 max power, 117.9 max torque. The blue is that was the previous run, and that again was with the Redshift 472 with no tuning. And you can see that it falls way off. The blue graph falls way off horsepower and torque on the big end. But look at the torque at the RPM here. Just the red, look at it, just comes up and just stays solid. And then the horsepower, you see before it fell off, but now with the red horsepower line, even at 6,000 RPM, it's still climbing. So pretty outstanding graph, and let me tell you, it pulls like a tank. I just couldn't ask for more power. I mean, I don't need it. It's fantastic cam. So I highly recommend it. So let's go over to the bike. Bear with me. And here's my breather system. You can see this hose here, this hose here. I brought them down and I put a T, and I brought it back, and it disappears and comes up underneath my side cover with a little air filter, a little small round filter above the battery. And then my trans, you can see the fitting on the trans cover in there. It comes straight up, same thing, behind that cover, and then it comes down, and then there's that catch can for the oil mist. I doubt there's going to be much draining of that catch can, much need for it, because of the crankcase pressure is now gone with the trans, but with the trans vent. But I highly recommend that you do both. Might not need to. If you do the trans, you probably get away with it, but why not? This is cheap and easy. Anyway, let's fire this thing up. Let me shut up. So the throttle response is outstanding. It will talk to you now. You stand behind that pipe 15, 20 feet, and it'll knock your hat off. It is a different beast. This 114 will roll, and in this soft tail frame, it's a fast motorcycle. So anyway, a lot of fun. Anyway, hey, thanks for watching. I hope this helps you guys. God bless y'all. Have a great day.